Sure. Here's Section 1, 1,500 words, of the script, keeping it concise, powerful, and engaging for a faceless narration style. They came from beyond the void, an empire that reshaped the stars with fire and cruelty, the Tyrak Dominion. For 10,000 years, their war machine crushed entire civilizations beneath its heel. Planets burned, cultures erased, species enslaved. They did not negotiate. They did not bargain. They only conquered. The galaxy fell into silent submission. Resistance was futile, until whispers of a forgotten force resurfaced. The Dominion had ensured that no records remained, that history itself was rewritten. But history has a way of bleeding through the cracks. Deep beneath the surface of a dead world, far beyond the Tyrak's reach, the past stirred. A desperate alliance of survivors, rebels, and fugitives gathered in the ruins of an ancient installation, drawn by myth and rumor. The resistance had been losing for centuries. But legend spoke of a species unlike any other, one that fought the Tyrak to a standstill before vanishing. Veclon, an exile among his own kind, stood before a colossal vault door, his breast shallow. The markings were unmistakable, alien to all but one lost race. His trembling fingers brushed against the ancient symbols, his voice barely above a whisper. Human. The word carried weight beyond time itself. It had been forbidden to speak. Behind him, warriors of different species exchanged uneasy glances. The idea of summoning a dead civilization was madness, but madness was all they had left. The facility hummed as dormant systems roared to life. Consoles blinked, long dead lights flickered, and deep within the vault, something responded. The room filled with the hiss of decompressing chambers, and the first of the pods opened. A figure stepped forward, pale from centuries of cryo-sleep, eyes adjusting to the dim glow. His breath was steady, his presence unnerving, his gaze unwavering. A voice, calm yet commanding, cut through the silence. Who woke us? No one spoke. No one dared. Then another pod opened. Then another. They did not ask where they were. They did not panic. They assessed, calculated, understood. These were not survivors. These were soldiers. And they were angry. The Tyrak had rewritten history, believing humanity was gone. They had not counted on this. Commander Elias Grant took his first step forward in 1,000 years. His suit adjusted, systems calibrating to the new world around him. He looked at Veclon, reading the tension in his alien face. Explain. Veclon tried to find his voice, but his mind screamed with the weight of what he was witnessing. The humans, mere myths a moment ago, now stood in front of him, breathing, thinking, remembering. He gathered his resolve. The Tyrak, they rule everything. There is no one left to stand against them. A slow, deliberate nod. No emotion. No hesitation. No fear. Elias turned to the others. More were waking. Their eyes told the same story. They had been meant to return. And now they had... He didn't ask about politics. He didn't ask about negotiations. He didn't ask if there was a way out. He asked the only question that mattered. Where are they? The resistance had expected confusion, perhaps disbelief. Instead, they saw something else. Recognition, as if war had been their second nature, burned into their very existence. Veclon hesitated before responding. The nearest Tyrak outpost is not far, but it is... Take us there. It was not a request. In the depths of the facility, machines stirred. Warships long thought lost, weapon caches sealed away, armor crafted in an era where battle was an art form. The humans moved with precision, wasting no movement, wasting no words. There was no celebration, no shock, no disbelief, only purpose. And as the last pod opened, as a final soldier stepped forth, the galaxy shuddered. Because in the dark, forgotten corners of history, the dead had woken, and they were coming. The air inside the command center was stale, thick with centuries of silence. The humans stood among the ruins of their own making, faces unreadable, eyes scanning every detail. They took in the technology, the structure, the mission logs buried under dust and time. There was no hesitation, Only calculation. Elias Grant activated a central console, his fingers moving across the ancient interface like he had never left. The room flickered with data streams, war reports, encrypted transmissions, classified files. He absorbed the information in silence, his expression hardening. Then he turned to Veclon. "How long?" The alien hesitated. 10,000 years. A quiet exhale. Not surprise, not disbelief, just acknowledgement. They had slept through the rise and fall of civilizations. Another soldier spoke, voice steady. "What happened to the fleet?" Veclon swallowed. "Destroyed. The last battle was recorded as your extinction. There were no survivors." A sharp scoff from one of the humans. Clearly, they were wrong. Grant nodded, absorbing every word. "They erased us. They did more than that." Veclon shifted uneasily. "The Tyrak reshaped the galaxy. They made you a myth, a cautionary tale. Any mention of humanity was forbidden. They made sure no one would look for you." He expected anger. He expected disbelief. What he got was far worse. Cold, methodical understanding. "The war never ended," Grant muttered. "It just paused." Another soldier stepped forward. "Checking the logs. The Revenant is still intact." Veclon's eyes widened. "The what?" Grant's gaze locked onto him. "A warship. One of ours." "That's impossible," Veclon protested. "Nothing from your time survived." Grant didn't respond. He was already moving. The others followed, their bodies adjusting to the weight of long dormant armor, their minds sharpening like blades finally unsheathed. The underground hangar was a graveyard of forgotten power. But among the wreckage, something massive remained untouched, a behemoth of steel and destruction, covered in the dust of millennia. The Revenant, engines dormant, weapons cold. But the moment the humans stepped aboard, systems flared to life. Lights pulsed. A ship that had been dead for 10,000 years recognized its masters. Veclon could barely process what he was seeing. This shouldn't be possible. A smirk ghosted across one of the soldiers' faces. "You have no idea what's possible." Grant's voice cut through the moment. "Status." A technician moved swiftly, scanning readouts. Core systems intact. Weapons at 80% capacity. Stealth field operational. "She's ready." Veclon could barely form words. "You can't fight them. Their fleets span entire systems. They've had 10,000 years to advance." Grant's eyes never left the data stream. "And we've had 10,000 years to be forgotten." A proximity alert flash read. "Unfamiliar. Alien." The Dominion had detected them. A fleet of Tyrak scouts, fast and heavily armed, descending on the moon like vultures. Veclon's stomach dropped. "We have to run." A slow turn. The humans weren't panicking. They weren't preparing to escape. They were calculating. Grant stepped onto the bridge, the ancient seat of command molding to his presence. He didn't need time to adjust. This was what he was made for. Target the lead ship. The Revenant's systems locked on. Targeting data appeared in real time. The Tyrak ships had no shields active. They didn't consider a dead warship a threat. A soldier's voice came over the comms. "Orders." Grant's response was simple. "Fire." The silence of the moon shattered. A single railgun round, traveling at incomprehensible speed, split the void. The lead Tyrak vessel never stood a chance. It detonated in a bloom of fire and debris before its crew realized they were dead. The other ships scrambled, panic taking over. Their system scrambled to raise shields, to reposition, to flee. They were too slow. The Revenant struck again. Precision, efficiency, ruthlessness. It was over in seconds. A force that had ruled unchallenged for millennia had been erased before they could fire a single shot. The silence that followed was deafening. Veclon stared at the wreckage, his mind refusing to comprehend what had just happened. He had spent his entire life running, hiding, fearing the Tyrak. And these humans, these ancient ghosts, had obliterated them as if they were nothing. Grant turned from the wreckage, gaze unreadable. "Send a message." Veclon hesitated. "What message?" The Revenant's comms powered on. Across the stars, Tyrak outposts, warships, and ruling elites received a single transmission. A voice, calm, controlled, inevitable. Humanity has returned. Prepare. For the first time in 10,000 years, the Tyrak Dominion felt something they had long since forgotten. Fear. The message spread like wildfire, reaching every Tyrak command center, every warlord, every puppet government under their rule. The impossible had happened. Humanity, erased from history, stripped from records, a mere cautionary tale, was real, and they had made their return known with fire. Panic rippled through the Dominion's ranks. Armadas were mobilized. Planetary governors issued emergency protocols. Fleets were redirected to find and crush the impossible threat before it could grow. The Tyrak had conquered thousands of species, waged war for millennia. Yet something about this enemy unsettled them in ways they couldn't explain. They weren't just fighting a rebellion. They were facing something ancient, something familiar. On board the Revenant, the crew worked with silent efficiency. There was no celebration, no arrogance, only focus. Data was gathered, fleet movements tracked, enemy strongholds analyzed. Every move the Tyrak made was predicted, calculated, broken down to raw probability. One by one, the pieces fell into place. The Dominion was vast, but it was not invincible. It had become complacent, bloated by centuries of unchallenged rule. Their fleets were massive, but predictable. Their strategies refined but stagnant. They ruled through fear, and fear had made them lazy. The humans understood this better than anyone. They had been outnumbered before. They had been hunted before. And they had won before. A small rebel fleet joined them. Species would spend generations under the Tyrak's boot. They expected grand speeches, fiery declarations of war, but they received none. The humans wasted no breath on theatrics. War wasn't about words. It was about action. The first target was chosen. A supply station on the edge of Tyrak space. Lightly defended. Critical for fueling their war machine. Not because the humans needed the resources, but because they needed to send a clear message. The Revenant dropped from stealth, moving with eerie precision. No wasted energy, no unnecessary fire. The station's defenses activated too late. In seconds, the shields collapsed, the main reactor crippled. The humans boarded without resistance. The Tyrak forces stationed, there were veterans, soldiers who had crushed entire civilizations. But they weren't ready. The humans didn't fight like rebels, didn't charge in desperation, didn't hesitate. Every shot found its mark. Every movement was calculated. They didn't fight to survive. They fought to win. Veclon watched in stunned silence. He had fought alongside countless species, seen thousands of battlefields. But nothing compared to this. The humans didn't hesitate. They didn't posture. They moved like death given form. The Tyrak officers, arrogant even in their defeat, sneered from behind their restraints. You can't win. The Dominion spans a galaxy. We are infinite. Grant's expression didn't change. You've never fought humans before. The officers laughed. We wiped you from existence. Grant leaned in slightly. And yet here we are. They didn't execute them. They didn't need to. They left them alive, let them send out their distress calls, let the Dominion hear their fear. Terror was a weapon, and the Tyrak had never faced it turned against them. Across the stars, whispers grew. Worlds that had long accepted Tyrak rule suddenly hesitated. Underground movements resurfaced. Fear changed sides. The Dominion had spent 10,000 years ensuring no one remembered humanity. Now, they couldn't stop talking about them. The next attack came before the Tyrak could react. A shipyard producing the next generation of warships. Gone. A command post overseeing supply lines. Destroyed. Every strike was surgical, precise, devastating. The Tyrak High Command convened in a state of panic. Their fleets could not be everywhere. Their supply lines were vulnerable. They had been at the top for so long. They had forgotten what it was like to be hunted. And the humans, they weren't just fighting. They were teaching. Other species watched, learned, adapted. The resistance, once scattered and weak, transformed into something else. No longer afraid. No longer desperate. They fought smarter. They fought ruthlessly. The Dominion realized too late. The war had already changed. This wasn't a rebellion anymore. This was a reckoning. The Tyrak Dominion could no longer ignore reality. Humanity was not a ghost. It was not a myth. It was a storm, silent at first, then relentless. What began as whispers became screams, spreading across the galaxy like wildfire. Entire fleets were diverted to hunt them, but the humans never fought where they were expected. They struck and vanished, leaving only wreckage and warnings. Tyrak propaganda crumbled. Their enemies no longer saw them as unstoppable. The Dominion had built its empire on the certainty of its rule, on the belief that resistance was futile. But humanity did not resist. It dismantled. The Revenant wasn't a fleet, yet the Dominion treated it like one. Every Tyrak admiral demanded its destruction. Every warlord placed bounties so high that even their own officers considered betrayal. But no trap worked. No ambush succeeded. The humans had fought extinction before. The Tyrak were just another enemy in a long, bloody history. The breaking point came when the first Tyrak warlord fell. Jarek Voss, ruler of 12 systems, lord of uncountable legions, never saw them coming. His palace, fortified, shielded, patrolled by elite guards, was a monument to his dominance. Yet, when the alarms blared, it was already too late. The guards died without firing a shot. Silent strikes, precise kills. No wasted movement, no unnecessary force. The palace halls, once filled with arrogance and wealth, became tombs. Jarek Voss had never feared death before. He had watched species burn, seen worlds kneel, crushed rebellions with his own hands. Yet when he looked up and saw Elias Grant standing over him, he knew something he had never felt in his centuries of rule: powerlessness. "You don't understand what you're doing," Jarek Voss spat, clinging to defiance. "The Dominion they won't save you." Grant's voice was calm, absolute. "They'll run. They always do." And they did. The Dominion's leaders, once untouchable, began to flee. They abandoned their posts, their people, their fleets. They had ruled with fear for so long that when it was turned against them, they shattered. Entire systems revolted overnight. The species that had suffered under the Tyrak no longer waited for salvation. They became it. Fleet commanders turned against their masters. Planetary governors declared independence. The Dominion's strength had never been in its weapons, but in its control, and now it had none. The Revenant stood at the heart of it all, a relic of an old war shaping a new one. But this was no longer just humanity's fight. They had never sought to rule, never won an empire. They didn't need one. They had already won. One final broadcast was sent. Across every Tyrak-held world, every surviving fleet, every crumbling stronghold, the message was the same. This is over. No demands. No conditions. Just the truth. The Tyrak Dominion, undefeated for millennia, fell in weeks. The war didn't end with a final battle. No grand confrontation. It ended the way humanity had always fought. Fast, brutal, and without mercy. The last of the Tyrak leadership vanished into the void, hunted by the very people they had once ruled. The galaxy did not mourn them. As the dust settled, Veclon stood aboard the Revenant, watching the stars shift. "It's done." Grant, staring out at the endless void, shook his head. "It's never done. Because war never truly ends. Not for humanity. Not for the ones who wake up to fight it.